Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of the Fintech Hunting Podcast. We have a very special guest for you today. She is an industry insider, a technology evangelist, a brand ambassador. We couldn't be more fortunate to have her join our show today. Please help me welcome Jelaire Grillo, brand ambassador for Prosperity Home Mortgage. Jelaire, welcome to the show.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here. What an introduction. I might steal you and take you with me when I'm on the road. I love it.
Well, we couldn't be more excited to have you. You have a wealth of knowledge and expertise. For our listeners who maybe don't know you, tell us a little bit about your background and kind of how you got in the mortgage industry, and then we'll dive into what's going on currently.
Well, I think like most people in the mortgage industry, I didn't really wake up and say, you know what, this is the industry that I'm going to be in, right? So I actually started working on the Hill. I studied political science, and I worked on the Hill for a little bit, and I could not stand it. And then I bounced to a nonprofit, and somehow ended up after that nonprofit in the mortgage industry. And I've been here ever since. I think I started in 2012, and I was a loan officer assistant, which doesn't jive well for my creative brain. I've got a very creative brain, and that's where my sweet spot is. I'm not necessarily a numbers person, but I made that work for about 8 years before I carved out a spot for myself in the marketing world of mortgage. And that led me here to Prosperity, where I've just kind of been building my own role, I guess, ever since I started, which has led me to becoming their brand ambassador just this year. So it's really exciting. It's been a fun little journey to get here. But I think like most, it wasn't what I thought I was going to do. It's just something that fell into my lap, and I couldn't love it anymore.
Oh, that is fantastic. And you're right. There's so many people that I talk to in the industry, including myself, that I didn't wake up and say, man, I can't wait to be in the mortgage industry. I can't wait to market to borrowers and everything else. But what I have found in being in the industry, and now I'll date myself a little, 20, almost 25 plus years now, once you get in, you never leave.
Yeah.
There's great people. There's great opportunities. So it is awesome to have you on the show. Let's talk a little bit about the current market conditions. Give me kind of a little bit of your take. We know it shifted from the beginning of the year from refi to purchase. Rates skyrocketed. People have kind of panicked a little. Now it's starting to calm down a little. Give me kind of a little bit of your take on kind of what you're seeing, and then we'll jump into all of the marketing.
I think you said it right when you said panic, right? So there's a little bit of panic, I think, on all sides, from a loan officer standpoint of view on driving business. And sort of, I'm sure you've heard this in the past year, sort of going back to the basics, right?
Yep.
Of building business. From the real estate side, there's a little bit of panic there as well, right? You know, there's not as many houses on the market. Their business is slowing down a little bit, and they have to get a little bit more creative. And they're cutting things. They're cutting budgets, and marketing typically is the first thing that gets cut in this type of environment. And then I think from, a client borrower standpoint of view, there's a little bit of panic there as well, because there's a lot of unknowns. The average person doesn't necessarily understand the nitty gritty like we do every day. And with rates the way they are and all of these different types of programs coming out that can help ease some of this panic, there's still that dread of the unknown for them, and they don't know where to go from here, and they don't speak our language. So how do we make it so that they feel more comfortable embarking on what could be, a big decision for them? So I think there's panic all around. It just depends on who you're talking to and who that person is. But there seems to be a little bit of it going around everywhere.
Yes, I would agree. There's some of it going on. But I love how you talked about, marketing, the importance of marketing. And I think one of the mistakes a lot of people make, to your point, was that's one of the first things they cut. Well, in my opinion, all you're going to do is put an anchor on your ankle and go down faster if nobody knows who you are, if they don't understand your brand. So let's start talking. You're a brand ambassador. You've carved out this niche. Even in a challenging market, it's a great opportunity to gain market share and to foster and grow realtor relationships. So talk to me about, as people are kind of looking at their budgets, how can they leverage technology to build better relationships and capture and close more leads?
Yeah, so I think what happens is we don't really know what our technology does, right? And so I talk to so many people, and they have all of this technology, but all they think is, oh, there's some automated components to it that sends out some emails for me and I'm good. But there's so many layers to the technology that we subscribe to, and we're not taking the time to take a deeper dive into that technology. So what I try to do on a regular basis is I try to get our loan officers here at PHM to take that deeper dive in there, right? Now, there's lots of layers to that technology, and I get that it can be overwhelming, but we can all find a few things that we can latch on to drive business forward, to build our brands, to build relationships. And so often we kind of sit at that surface level. We see the foundation is there and we think, oh, we're good. Like, I don't need to take that deeper dive. So as people start to panic and they're like, well, what do I do next? And they start to look at their marketing, peel back the layers. I bet you are subscribing to things inside of your marketing tech stack that are going to be super helpful for you to continue to drive business forward and to build relationships.
Oh, excellent insights. And I agree with you completely. You've got to really peel back that onion and look at, what are the tools that I have, and am I really leveraging them to their full potential? One of the things you talked about, some of the automations, and I think one of the, the mistakes people make is the perception they have of, well, it's automated. It's a generic email. It goes out to everybody, or it's a generic text message. Talk to me about how technology and automation can still be very highly personalized.
So, I think what people need to understand is no matter what company you're in, there's automation is going to be built on behalf of you, right? And so what we do here, we do an exercise here, is I say, okay, this is the foundation. This is what's automated. There are 4 points where there's a heavy automation. But what happens in between those points to get people from point A to point B, B to C, and C to D? There's something happening in between those points. And that's where that person comes into play, right? That's the conversations that they're having. That's the extra little things that they're doing. And so how do we take that automation and then take what they're doing and bring them together so that you've got a really well-defined system, a well-defined process, almost like a living, breathing document? This is going to change all of the time. And so you can have both. You can, but you need to have a good understanding of what that automation is, a good understanding of what you're doing in between those pieces, and then sit down and find a way to marry them together. There's definitely a way to do it, but it takes time. And I don't know about you, but anytime you say it takes time, there's usually an eye roll that follows after. I get those eye rolls quite frequently, but it's worth it. The people that sit down and take those 2 hours to do an exercise like that can find that the automation is only going to help elevate their business by what they're already doing. And so bringing them together is really the key.
Well, and that bringing together highlights the brand. It helps differentiate you in the marketplace, whether you're an individual LO, whether you're the lender looking to gain a lot more visibility and brand differentiation. And I love how you talk about it's marrying that automation, right? Because automation, if used properly, can enhance what the loan officer is doing for the borrower, what the loan officer and the relationship the loan officer has with the real estate agent. It can free up time, but it can also make sure that you're very relevant and top of mind with them. Yeah. You have a lot of great insights. So let's keep diving in, because I love talking mortgage marketing and everything else. What do you see as kind of the formula to drive growth and retention?
So, I think the formula is you've got to meet people where they're at. And so when I talk to people about this, meeting people where they're at, it seems like a daunting task, right? And it doesn't really matter which bucket we're talking about here, whether we're talking about the loan officers or clients or real estate partners, but let's talk about loan officer, but it doesn't matter, right? This could go anywhere. You have to meet people where they're at. So I spend a lot of time on the road driving adoption of technology, But I don't just sit up there and talk to people about this is what you should be doing. I want to know what they want to be doing. Where do they find themselves getting stuck? Where are they falling behind? Where do they feel uncomfortable? And then I'm going to meet you there. I'm going to help you solve that problem. Because if I can help you solve that problem, then you're going to buy into the technology. You're going to buy into the way we do things. And you're going to feel more at ease as you start to build on that. And that what that does right there is that brings their brand forward, their personal selves to the table. And I think if you can do that, if you can meet people where they're at, even though it sounds daunting, it really is a win for everybody. It's a really great feeling to see somebody turn around and say, I can do this. I feel comfortable doing this. I feel supported doing this. And it honestly sounds like a lot, but it's as easy as that. Like, don't get up and preach, get up and meet them where they're at.
Well, and I think you bring up so many important points there. You know, one, the mortgage industry historically has done a horrific job of user adoption. Right. Companies have invested a ton of money, and depending on the size of the company is the size of the investment, but they've invested a ton in technology, but the cost to originate a loan continues to rise. They're not really leveraging that automation. And then secondly, they're not getting that user adoption. And I love your approach to say, instead of me standing up there and preaching at people, let me find out where they're at. Are they struggling with content? Are they struggling with, they don't know the frequency of what the outreach should be. They don't know that cadence of, should it be a phone call, 2 text messages, and then an email? And should that happen over a week's period of time, a month's period of time? That's where I see a lot of the loan officers out there struggle with it. And they're busy. They're good on the phone. When somebody shows an interest, they're really good running with it, but trying to spark that interest, trying to consistently get materials out is very different. Let's talk a little bit about consistency, because I think that's one area that automation can really help.
Yep.
Because loan officers, they get busy and they go on what I call the mortgage roller coaster. They have a big pipeline. So the next month, all they do is they're working all the loans in their pipeline and they're not working on their business.
Yeah.
So they're all excited. And then as soon as all those loans go through the funnel, they wake up and say, crap, I don't have anything in my pipeline. And they're almost starting over and going on that roller coaster. How can automation create consistency so it helps create a more steady flow and they're not always on those peaks and valleys?
Well, so I think you said it really well there. When things are hot and heavy and they've got that thing in front of them, they're so focused, right? And so when I look at it, I'm looking at consistency, not just in the middle, right? Where they're in process or they're pre-approved. Like, I'm not looking for the consistency there because that's always going to be there. I'm looking for, how do we make things consistent on the other end? So at the very beginning, before they become pre-approved, and then at the very end when they close, how do we build consistency in there so that you're not just focused in on that middle, and then you do have slow time. You're also focused on what's happening at the end and at the very, very beginning. So you're always moving. And so I think it's really important for people to be able to take a step back and look at that bigger journey, not just the middle of the journey, the whole thing from start, that very first conversation, nothing has happened. What are we doing from that very first conversation to this loan has closed? We're going to nurture that. We're going to continue to nurture this for the next 6 years. And we're going to continue to bring opportunities to the table for our loan officers. So often we get stuck in the middle and we don't think about what happens at the very, very beginning. We lose a lot there. And then we're like, oh, it's closed, I'm moving on to the next. But there's so much relationship. There's so relationships to be built and nurtured at the end of that deal as well. So build it out, find your consistency across the board. Don't just focus on the middle. It's important. I know that, but the other 2 ends are probably, I think, more important than the middle.
I would agree, because if you do it right on the front end, you're going to help start leading them into set the right expectations, create a better user experience. And then on the back end, too long in the mortgage industry, we've been very transaction focused. Get the Smith file in, get the Smith file out, get the Jones file in, get the Jones file out. And we don't focus on building that relationship. And those relationships turn to additional loans over the course of their lifetime, different referrals. And that's what really creates and grows a sustainable business. How are lenders adopting using co-marketing to win real estate relationships? What's customer intent for the deal flow? What are some of those acting buying signs that we're seeing either on the real estate side or on the loan officer side?
Well, I think right now in the market that we're in the loan officer is in a very unique position to bring value to the table for their real estate partners in the form of co-branding on a variety of levels. And so, here at PHM, co-branding is very big. Our real estate partners are our number one customer, and we are always trying to add value to their process. And right now, more than ever, they are looking for that value because they are not spending money right now on marketing like they used to. And so we put that relationship first and foremost. And so we're co-branding across the board, right? We're looking at the relationship between the loan officer, the real estate partner, and the client within the journey itself, within the automation. How can we bring co-branding components into there so we can add value? How can we bring co-branding components in at the very beginning of the process when that real estate partner has met somebody for the very first time and they want to nurture that relationship with their lender? Marketing materials, from anything from flyers to like your normal everyday marketing collateral. But we are trying to bring that value to the table every single day because, again, to circle back to where we were at the beginning, there is that panic on their side. And this helps ease that panic. So whether it's from a marketing perspective, a programs and products perspective, we are trying to find all of the layers that we can bring to the table to add that value in for them.
I love how you talk about adding value because I think that's so critical in today's market. And when we say value, we don't just mean buying gifts and all of those things. There's RESPA, there's rules, there's regulations, but it's informational value. It's relationship value. It's educational value that helps them make better, more informed decisions, helps their buyers make better and more informed decisions, how to put the best offer forward the first time. What are 3 tips for, a first-time home buyer? What are the nuances if you're self-employed? When you can provide that type of value, that has an impact and it helps the real estate agent close more business. And when you do that, they're going to continue to be very loyal to you. I love your tips and suggestions. You and I could keep talking for hours. I got to wind down soon, but how has Prosperity Home Mortgage adopted technology and onboarded some of the most marketing adverse loan officers?
So we're big on our adoption of different marketing components to our tech stack. We're always looking to see what is the value add it's going to provide to the loan officers. What is the value add it's going to provide to our real estate partners? That's a really big question as well. We don't want to bring on something that's not going to provide value across the board. And so we ask those 2 questions when we are bringing on different vendors into our marketing tech stack, which is actually a fairly large tech stack. So we do have a lot in there, which is hard for our loan officers to adopt because when you have so much, it's almost, it's too much.
Overwhelming, right?
Right. Where do you start? But as far as getting, those loan officers to adopt that technology, especially those that are so anti-technology, because there are so many of them out there, it's not that they're anti-technology, it's they don't know where to start and they're uncomfortable in the technology. Yep. So that leads me to what we were talking about just a second ago. It's meeting them where they're at. I was sitting in Alabama with a loan officer who does not like technology. And I said, okay, I get it. I hear what you're saying. Give me one problem you have right now in your process and let me try to solve it using the technology we have. And he gave me the problem and I sat down with my team. It took us about a couple weeks, but we were able to solve for it inside of our marketing technology. And so I met him where he's at. I asked him a question. He told me where he was struggling, and my team worked to help solve that problem for him. Is that attainable with 500 loan officers? Probably not, but there are ways to scale it, to ask people where they're at, and then to help meet them there to make them more comfortable. So you can do it.
That is such great insights. And even if from a scalability perspective, you can find some of the common denominators. Hey, out of these 100 loan officers, out of these 500, here's the top 5 challenges that are the biggest pain point.
Exactly.
Let's address those. So, Julie, you have provided so many great insights. I can't thank you enough. You are welcome back anytime. I love talking mortgage marketing. If somebody wants to find out more about Prosperity Home Mortgage and some of the incredible things that you're doing, what is the best way they can get a hold of you?
LinkedIn's probably the best. It's my playground as far as social media platforms are concerned. I love being on there. So that's where you can find me, and you can definitely find Prosperity on there as well.
Outstanding. Thank you so much for being a guest on this episode of the Fintech Hunting Podcast.
Thanks for having me.